cages woke before the street. Their little wires rang, and April stood outside the glass while every yellow throat sang. You swept the seed husks from the shelf with one slow, careful hand, then filled the cup with millet grain and leveled off the sand. The rabbits slept in cedar shreds, the goldfish turned below. A boy pressed pennies to the pane and watched the finches go. You took one cage from near the light, not bright enough to stare, and tied a blue tag to its hook as if a name were there. Blue tag on the canary, small against the morning wire, told no song, and yet it seemed to steady all that choir. Blue tag on the canary, I watched your fingers stay and felt a common errand turn almost holy for a day. You checked the latch and checked it twice, then moved the perch aside so nothing sharp would catch a wing when carried on the ride. A woman came with shopping string, a schoolgirl chose a bowl. The bell above the doorway shook and let the sunlight roll. You said, he startles if you rush, then lowered down your tone, and all at once that little cage looked less like being owned. No church stood near, no choir wore robes, no candle dressed the air, only sawdust, seed and glass, and someone taking care. Yet there are ways a small life leaves that ask the room to see, a hand that knows how light to hold, what trembles to be free. Blue tag on the canary, tied before the child came in, bright as April's smallest flag beside the painted tin. Blue tag on the canary, not ribbon, prize or claim, only proof that even song was gently given a name. The child went out with both hands still, the bell swung once above, and in the shop one empty hook kept ringing after love.
Below, the druggist draws the shade. The stair smells faint of snow. Upstairs, the little signal lamps begin their evening glow. The wet galoshes by the stove, leave commas on the floor. 3 folded slips lie face side down beside the wicket door. You sit before the walnut board with chords in black and red, one sleeve turned back above the wrist, one pencil at the ledge. The county bells come thin and quick. You answer without haste and fit one shining plug to one as neatly as to lace. I came to ask for Dexter 5, a simple call, no more, but heard you say, go on, she's there, and close the booth door. A mother from the Ridge Road line, a grocer by the square, someone whose voice kept breaking up because the snow was there. You held the circuit breathing soft while all the shops below went dark one after one along the street under the snow. The line stayed open, the line stayed open. Past the hour the druggist turned his window shade, till every far-off halting word found the ear for which it stirred, and no one had to leave the night half made. The line stayed open, the line stayed open. There are hands that carry parcels, there are hands that hem and mend, there are hands that keep a wire from breaking at the end. You never heard the whole of it, you never asked to know, yet something in the way you waited taught the voices how to go. The line stayed open, the line stayed open, long enough for one last yes and one more county name. And when at last you drew the cord, the room was only wood and board. But I had seen how kindness works without a sign or flame. The line stayed open, the line stayed open. You wound the fallen chords in loops, set both receivers down. The snow kept whitening at the curb, the clock hands crossed the town. I never placed my call that night, I stood until you rose, and all the way home every wire seemed humming through the snow.
The dome was dark before the show, the seats held winter air, and on the desk beside the charts, the little stars lay bare. You stood beneath the lowered sky with chalk upon your sleeve.
the brass plates stacked in careful piles, too still to quite believe. A row of coats along the rail gave November to the room. And somewhere in the lobby hall, a school bell lost its tune. The children waited 2 doors down, their mittens in a heap, their voices bright enough to wake the painted heavens from sleep. You checked the map, then stopped your hand and frowned, but only slight, for Orion's belt was missing one small borrowed point of white. You found it near the projector base, no bigger than a seed, a white pin fallen from the sky where no one else would heed. You lifted it between 2 nails, then climbed the narrow stair and set it in the velvet dark as if it answered there. A boy outside began to ask if Mars was truly red. The usher hushed the waiting line, the clock moved on ahead. You stepped back once to judge the place, not proud and not for show. And all at once that paper night had somewhere else to go. No one would know the sky had failed by such a little mark. The children would have watched the stars and never missed the dark. But there are hands that mend a world before the lights begin, and give the farthest things their names by putting small things in. Orion was missing only one pale spark, only one quiet point of care against a borrowed dark. Orion was missing. You set the heavens true and made a room of waiting eyes look up because of you. Orion was missing, then found beneath your hand, not moon, not vow, not golden flame, but something made to stand. Orion was missing. I saw the lesson clear. A sky can turn more merciful when someone notices here. The lights went down, the children gasped, the dome began to glow, and in his belt one little star held all the dark in row. The fitting room was warm with steam from pressing coats below. A row of pins in a velvet roll, 2 hats set by the door. You said, "Stand easy, if you please," and drew the curtain wide, then circled once with that narrow tape and let it fall aside. The treadle slowed, the hall clock spoke, a buyer laughed downstairs. You brushed one thread from off my sleeve as though no one was there. When you took my measure, you did not speak of grace. You only marked the shoulder seam and looked up at my face. When you took my measure in that small upstairs room, the very air seemed cut to fit and leave the heart more room. Your chalk had paled your second finger, your cuffs were turned with care. You held the bodice to the light to find what pulled it there. Outside The avenue changed its shift, the trolley bells came thin, and dusk laid one long panel down across your cheek and chin. You asked me not to hold my breath, not once to stand too grand, then fixed the hem with 3 small pins and steadied it by hand. When you took my measure, you never named a thing, only moved the mirror half an inch and straightened out the spring. When you took my measure with your pencil by your ear, I felt how kindly one might be without a word made dear. Years will alter cloth and fashion, raise and lower every line, take the little waist from one age and give the next new signs. But some hands learn a person truly by what they do not press, by leaving ease where ease is due and shaping nothing less. When you took my measure, the daylight nearly done, you left a basting thread of gold where 2 plain pieces joined. When you took my measure, I think I understood how rare it is to be made room for and quietly sit good.
The shutters met the winter street, the bench light stayed on low. 1 loop lay by the ledger line, 1 key beside the stove. You brought it in at 4:30, still warm from your thin wrist. The clasp had failed, the minute stopped at 6:15. You said it's only a little watch, and smiled as women do, as if a thing that held your day could matter less than you. So when the shop was closed and dim, and every footstep passed, I wound it once and set it near, to hear if it would last. No vow was anywhere in that, no word I thought to start. Just your small watch, and after hours, the tick in the dark. Beneath an upturned jelly glass, it beat the counter thin. Among the springs and velvet trays and tiny brass within, I ought to have gone up to bed and left the lamp to die. Yet every little while I looked to see the hands go by. I only meant to make it right for Tuesday when you'd call. But all at once that patient sound outlived the shop and all. Some men keep letters in a drawer, a flower dry and stark. I only kept one borrowed watch and listened through the dark. By morning it had missed no step. The hands moved clean and true. I polished out the thumbprint there and wrapped it up for you. You said it's perfect now and smiled, then left before the spark. And all I had was one long night, the tick in the dark. The bench was bare by 10:30. The lamp had lost its gold. But sometimes when a room goes still and evening settles cold, I hear again that little watch take up its tender part, the sound of something not my own, still beating in the dark. The hallway smelled of chalk and paste. The bell had just rung through, and in the nurse's little room, the basin held the blue. You stood beside the medicine shelf with cotton in your hand, a ledger open to the date, a chair too small to stand. The playground dust was on his knees, his pride was worse than skin. He kept his chin set hard and high to hold the crying in. He washed the thumb and turned it slow, not making much of pain, then blew the iodine dry before it stung again. A ruler tapped beyond the wall, the class began to add, and all at once that quiet room seemed kinder than it had. You tore the gauze in one clean strip, then folded it just twice, and said the bravest boys you knew still had to take advice. He watched you tie the little knots as if it were a prize, then looked at me and looked away with sunlight in his eyes. My errand there was nothing much, a note the teacher sent. I stood beside the open door and forgot the way I went. You wrote his name beneath the line, then gave his sleeve a brush, and sent him back with both hands whole inside the morning hush. The bandage on the thumb, wide against the school day sun, was only meant to hold a hurt till arithmetic was done. The bandage on the thumb, I watched your fingers stay, and learned how softly care can speak when pride is in the way. No one would call it tenderness, a basin, gauze and chair, a boy who fell beside the swings, a nurse with pinned up hair. Yet some small mercies keep their place long after bells have gone. The hand that does not shame the wound but helps the child move on. The bandage on the thumb, neat beneath his cuff of blue, held more than cotton, tape, and thread because it came from you. The bandage on the thumb, plain as any schoolroom thing, still shows me how a gentle hand can send the hurt back singing. The bell rang out for recess time, the hallway filled with feet, and in your book the morning stayed, recorded small and sweet.
The exchange was lit by one desk lamp, the wall clock nearing 2, and rain along the tin roof seams kept tapping something through. You sat before the switchboard there, with pencils in a jar, the cotton cords in hanging rows, the town asleep and far. A doctor called from County Road, his voice came thin and crossed. A mother in the hospital had asked before she lost. Her son was somewhere west of Rome on work no train could mend. You marked the slip, then kept one jack reserved until the end. You let the other callers wait, then watch the small lights burn as if a life could hold its breath, until a voice returned. Hold the line clear, hold the line clear. Let no idle word come in where one boy must appear. Hold the line clear, no one in town would know how carefully you guarded space for love to travel slow. The night clerk asked for Bedford, Maine. A farmer tried the mill. The rain went hard against the roof, then softened on the sill. You answered each with quiet hands, then moved the cord aside, so nothing crossed that waiting place where distance had to ride. At 3, the overseas call came back, a crackle, then a name. You leaned close to the mouthpiece there and did not sound the same. Hold on, you said, and patched him through, your finger on the key. And all the room grew still enough to hear what could not be. You looked away before they spoke, but left the circuit true. The rain kept time for every word that passed because of you. Hold the line clear, hold the line clear, till the miles grow small enough for one voice to come near. Hold the line clear, plain work beneath the light. Yet all of October leaned in close across that wire tonight. Some partings where no station smoke, no waving from a door. They wait inside a numbered room and ask the wires for more. And some hands know the mercy of doing less, not more, keeping the world from speaking until one voice comes ashore. Hold the line clear, hold the line clear, for the word that has to find the one who needs to hear. Hold the line clear, I saw your hand stay still, and learn that silence held with care can carry what words will. Before the breakfast trays came up, before the kettle stirred, the veranda boards held salt and dark, and one waking gull was heard. She opened both the ocean doors with wool across her arm. The wicker seats were cold with mist, the brass wheels slow to warm. A folded stack of gray lap rugs lay waiting by the wall, each with a patient's little tag, pinned careful, neat and small. She set the chairs in even line, then stopped beside the last. Its cane was split along one side, its footrest lowered fast. She turned it from the shadowed rail without a word or sound, until the empty waiting chair faced where the sun came round. A nurse went by with medicine, a tray cloth brushed her knee. The tide below the garden wall kept counting quietly. She tucked the blanket at the seat, then smoothed the corner flat, and placed a cushion near the back where one thin shoulder sat. The old man would be wheeled out soon, his paper in his hand, to read the same 3 headlines twice and watch the fishing land. She knew he never asked for much, nor said the light was dear. She only made the morning wait a little closer there. Some rooms begin before we come, some kindness starts unseen. A chair turns slightly toward the dawn, a rug laid soft and clean. Not every gift is handed out, not every mercy speaks. Some simply finds the proper angle for the light a body seeks. Face the chairs east, let the sea grow pale, let the first gold touch the hands that tremble on the rail. Face the chairs much a little brightness means after a season of rain. Face the chairs east while the house is still, before the cups, before the calls, before the morning chill. Face the chairs east, one careful turn no more, and they came in like tenderness across the painted floor. At 7, wheels crossed over boards. The old man took his place, and sunrise, finding where to go, arrived upon his face. The store was closing floor by floor. The lamps went pale above, and hat boxes beside the glass leaned softly into love. You stood inside the elevator with buttons at your hand. The brass gate folded bright and thin. The mirror tall and bland. A lady called for millinery. A clerk came down with lace. A child pressed every numbered light and hid his guilty face. Then he arrived with violets, his overcoat half done, and asked for floor 11, as if there were only one. The bell had rung for closing time. The door should have been drawn. You held the gate a moment more and let him hurry on. Hold the gate at 5. Let the brass stay wide. Let someone carrying flowers keep his errand safe inside. Hold the gate at 5. A courtesy no more, yet all my heart stood waiting on the wrong side of the floor. The car rose past the dresses, past gloves and evening shoes. The mirror took his violets twice and gave them back in blue. You asked if he was nearly late. He smiled and said, a little. The elevator trembled up between the floors of metal. I had no reason riding there, no purchase left to claim. My parcel held a necktie pin, my ticket bore no name. But when you reached to stop the lift and turn the handle slow, I saw how lightly one small hand can help
another go. He thanked you with his hat in hand, then stepped into the hall. You watched the violets disappear and did not watch me at all. Hold the gate at 5. Let the old ropes rise. Let another man's bright flowers reach another pair of eyes. Hold the gate at 5. No promise, touch or sign, only your hand making room for a kindness that was not mine. It was not envy, I would say, to buttons, brass and light. Not envy of a flower bunch sent somewhere out of sight, but certain little mercies can uncover what we hide. The gate held open gently for the one who gets to ride. Hold the gate at 5. Let the floors go by. Let the mirror keep the violets and the question in my eye. Hold the gate at 5. The evening store grew still, and all the way down after him, that open gate stayed filled. The elephant house woke before the ticket gates were wide, with straw dust in the rafters high, and October kept inside. She came along the iron rail with apples in a pail. Her sleeves rolled back, her step so soft it hardly touched the scale. The younger ones were restless there. They swung their trunks for more. Their chains rang once against the posts. Their shadows crossed the floor. But in the farthest corner stall, where morning entered late, the old one stood and waited still beside the wooden gate. Half an apple later, when the noise had passed, she saved the sweetest broken piece and gave the old one last. Half an apple later, no crowd, no call, no claim, only one hand remembering who answered to a name. The keeper checked the water trough, then brushed the rope aside. A school bell rang beyond the park. The city stretched outside. She split one apple with her thumb, where age had made it brown, then held it up with patient palm and never hurried down. The old one took it carefully, as if the world head bent lower there and trusted what was in. No one was there to photograph, no child was there to see. Only straw and iron hooks and one small courtesy. Half an apple later, soft beneath the rind, was not enough to fill the day, but more than being kind. Half an apple later, the house grew still and wide, and all that morning seemed to lean toward what she set aside. Some faith is made of larger things, of vows and bells and art, but some is kept in pails at dawn and carried part by part. The world may feed the young and bright and praise the quick parade, yet love is often what remains when something small is saved. The gate swung open, footsteps came, the children filled the sun, and in the corner, chewing slow, the old one kept that one.
The bathhouse clock was losing heat. The lockers clanged below, and towels along the wooden rail grew darker in a row. You stood above the guarded sand with zinc along your cheek, a whistle resting at your throat, your shoes kicked from your feet. The children dug their castles low, the mothers shook out sheets. A radio near the soda stand kept time in little beats. One boy in trunks of faded green went farther than he knew, past where the ropes drew silver lines. Across the afternoon you saw the shoulder of the tide before the rest could see, and raised one arm into the sun, as calm as it could be. No red flag yet, no red flag yet. Only your hand above the glare, where sea and sky had met. No red flag yet, but something in that sign made all the careless summer pause before it crossed the line. The boy turned back before you called, a gull cut hard and low. The sand slid warm around my shoes, the undertow pulled slow. You marked the hour in the book, then folded down the page, as if a life might pass through danger without learning its age. His father laughed and waved him in, too late to understand. You only watched the water once and brushed salt from your hand. I came to ask the closing time, or said that was my aim,
stayed beside the guard stand steps and could not leave the same. There are warnings never sounded, there are rescues no one names, a breath withheld, a glance made early, a hand that measures waves, and there are hearts that owe the day to something small and plain. Not thunder, not a shouted word, but care, arriving sane. No red flag yet. No red flag yet. The folded cloth beside your chair had not been needed yet. No red flag yet. Still I see it clear, how close the bright world came to harm, how quietly you were near. The beach lamps woke along the walk, the last bell thinned away, and by the logbook, clean and red, the folded warning stayed. The town had shut its porches down. The courthouse gave one chime, and in the little exchange room, the cords hung still as twine. She sat before the switchboard wall, with cotton at her wrist, a pencil by the message pad, her coffee gone to mist. The moths kept tapping at the shade, the fan turned slow and wide, and every sleeping house outside had wires at its side. Then one red lamp began to wink above the doctor's name. She lifted up the answering cord before the second flame. A woman's voice came thin with fear from 4 miles past the mill, and all the room around the board grew suddenly more still. Hold the line, hold the line. Nothing more than waiting there between one voice and time. Hold the line, small duty plain and true. Yet in her hands the darkened town had one way through. The doctor's bell rang twice, then 3, then stopped beneath the floor. She tried his sister's boarding room, then tried the back drugstore. No panic crossed her steady face, no word was spent too fast. She only looped the cloth-bound cord and made the silence last. The farmhouse breathed against her ear. A child coughed once, then cried.
cried. She said, "He's coming, keep the lamp," and set the jack beside. Outside the gravel road lay black, the moon was nearly gone, but still she kept that little light from being left alone. No one would see the way she sat with one hand near the board, or how a common copper thread could carry mercy toward. Some rooms are small enough to miss, some work leaves little sign, but life may hang for half a breath on who will hold the line. Hold the line, hold the line, till wheels are heard beyond the bridge, till fear has crossed its time. Hold the line, not bell nor hymn nor flame, only a woman keeping still beside a blinking name. At dawn the doctor called her back. The child had found his sleep. She wrote one note, then cleared the cord and let the morning keep.